What's going on YouTube? You've picked up the shiny new Blood Bowl Season 2 from Games Workshop, and you've had a read through the rulebook, but you've got a few questions, and that's why you're here. Blood Bowl is quite a challenging but equally rewarding board game that takes a little bit of time to get your head around the complex rules. But once you do, this is a game with endless replayability. Every single match playing out slightly different to the one before, even in the same team matchups. In this ongoing series, we're going to cover all of the core mechanics of the game. And in today's episode, we're going to focus on how you move your players around the board. And to fully demonstrate this, we're going to move to our board over there and have a proper look. Now, as you can see, we have our pitch set up and it's divided into squares. The pitch is 15 squares wide and 26 squares long, giving a grand total of 390 squares in total. I'll be covering how the pitch is laid out in a separate setup video, but for today it's enough to know that each square is counted as one movement point. Every player in the game, from the lowest snotling to the fastest elf, all have a movement statistic, represented by the MV on their player card, and this is the total number of squares a player can move each turn. So our movement 6 human lineman can move 6 squares, but our human catcher can move a total of 8 squares. So that is the basic side of movement, but there's so much more to it than just pushing your players forwards up the pitch up to their maximum movement. You can move your player from any square into any of the 8 squares surrounding it, as long as this square doesn't have another player in it, or that square is off the playable pitch. So with our human lineman, he could go 2 squares forward, then diagonally, and finally sideways up to his total of 6. It doesn't matter which direction you go, just how many squares you use, and you don't have to use all of your movement allowance if you don't want to. The wonderful thing about Blood Bowl is that at its core it is a game about risk management, and the movement aspect is no different. If you've moved your player their full allotted allowance, so in this case our human lineman has moved his 6 squares, but you've decided you want him to go just a little bit further, then if you're prepared to risk the dice, you can. Now this used to be called a GFI, or a going for it move, but in the 2020 rules this has been changed to a rush. So if you end up playing against an older player who hasn't played in a previous edition, they may easily continue to call this move a GFI rather than a rush, but it is the same thing. And what it allows you to do is to take any player and allow them to move 2 additional squares above their normal movement allowance. In order to make a rush, you choose the square you would like your player to rush into, move that player and then roll a d6. On the roll of a 2+, they make the rush and you can carry on. On a roll of a 1, however, they fall over. If you manage to make the first one, then you can do a second. And it's very good practice to do these one at a time. So you make the first one, and then you decide if you want to make the second, rather than just deciding you're going to do both at the same time. So that covers how far and in which directions you can move your players. But what happens when we introduce players from the opposing team? If we look back at our previous diagram, showing the 8 possible movement squares any player can use, this also represents the tackle zones that any standing player has. Depending on the situation, they can interact with any one of those 8 squares with a variety of effects. And from a movement point of view, if you're moving through or out of one of these tackle zones, you're required to make a dodge roll. In the same way that every player has a movement statistic, every player has an agility statistic, shortened to AG, on the player card. Unlike movement, which was an allotment, an allowance of how much movement you can use, the agility is a target roll required to pass an agility test. And a dodge roll is one of the most common agility tests any player can make. So here in this example, we have our human lineman back, and he's trying to get away from an ogre. And if we choose to dodge him into this square here, this is a dodge away from a tackle zone into an empty square, and that will be done on a 3+, the human lineman's target agility. An agility of 3+ is pretty much the average roll, and it's the one you'll see most commonly, but this can go as low as a 2+, and it will go as high as a 5+ for most rostered players, making some players better and some players worse at doing dodges. Now, for the purpose of actually making the dodge, you move your player first, and then you roll the dice to see if they achieve that dodge, the same as you do with a rush. And this means that if you fail the dodge, and in this case that's a 1 or a 2, they fall over in the square they are going to rather than in the square they started in. Now, dodging into an empty square is the easiest type of dodge you can make. If you decide instead to dodge into a tackle zone, so in this case we're going to dodge forwards rather than backwards, then the presence of the ogre makes that dodge more difficult than dodging away from him. In this instance, it's -1 for the single tackle zone of the ogre, making it a 4+ dodge. But here, when we add a second player putting a tackle zone on that target square, it becomes -2 for the 2 tackle zones, and the dodge is now 5+. You can choose to make as many dodge rolls in a turn as you like, up to and including your maximum movement +2 rushes, or until you fail one within a turn, which will cause a team turnover. And we'll cover turnovers in a separate video. Now, there's an important distinction here that moving into a tackle zone without being marked does not count as a dodge. A dodge takes place when you start in a tackle zone, and then is modified if you are dodging away from tackle zones or into tackle zones. But the act of moving from an open square into a tackle zone isn't in itself a dodge. For the new second season of Blood Bowl, Games Workshop are reintroducing a very old skill, but one that didn't exist in the last edition, and this is jump. It allows a player to leap over a stunned or prone player, anyone that is lying on the floor at the time. Now, I covered this video a few weeks ago, so you can catch it up here for the in-depth discussion. Essentially, again using your agility roll, you can go from one square over a stunned player to land in an empty square beyond them. So going back to our trusty human lineman, he can jump over that stunned beastman into any of these 3 squares. And just like making a dodge, he uses his target agility to see if he can achieve this. In this example, it's an unmodified 3+. And again, as with our previous 2 examples, you move your player first and then roll to see if you can achieve it. It uses up the same 2 squares of movement as if he had been able to walk into that square, and if you need to make a rush to complete the jump, then the sequence goes move player, roll for the rush, and then roll for the jump. In our second example, our human lineman can leap into these 3 squares, so the direction you are coming from and the player you're going over dictates which squares you can land in. But as you can see, the Chaos Warriors here are in position to make this a little bit trickier. Our human lineman is currently marked by 1 Chaos Warrior, and the target square he is leaping into has 2 Chaos Warriors covering it with their tackle zones. Now, to calculate how complicated a jump is, you need to know how many tackle zones he's starting in and how many tackle zones he's ending in. So in this case, he's starting in 1 tackle zone and finishing in 2. Just like making a dodge, each tackle zone adds a -1 penalty to the required roll, but you only apply the worst modifier. So because it is -1 in the starting square, -2 in the target square, we use the -2, making this jump a 5+. Now again, it's important to note that if you are attempting a jump away from a tackle zone, you do not need to make the dodge as well, just the jump. Well guys, that covers all of the basic movement options available to most players. Now there are skills that affect, modify or improve these movement options, but this is the standard starting point. We'll cover all of those other skills at a later time. Now don't forget guys, I do live stream my Blood Bowl matches here on YouTube and on Twitch. So why not jump in there, say hello, and if there's any questions you've got about this video or anything else Blood Bowl related, then you can ask them there and I'll cover them for you live. And don't forget that if you did like this video, then please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, it really helps out, and then you won't miss out on our next video. But until then guys, thank you very much for tuning in, and I will catch you again soon.